The man dodged like in subway parkour, avoiding the crazed horde of zombies. He hurriedly took out a landmine and threw it behind him. The zombies were instantly blown to bits, but this apocalyptic escape route had just begun. A large group of zombies came crawling out of the sugarcane field. They surged onto the road, trapping the family in an abandoned farm. Welcome to the zombie disaster blockbuster. Escape from the outside world. After the zombie crisis broke out, David's family of 4 roamed everywhere. He drove to his parents' country estate to check on the 2 elderly people. David asked his family to wait in the car. As he walked into the villa, the interior was eerily silent. David pushed open his father's bedroom door. A foul smell hit him in the face. His father had been dead for some time on the bed, still gripping a gun in his hand. It was clear he had taken his own life. After being infected, David took the gun away and pocketed his father's watch. Just as he left the bedroom, he encountered his zombie-turned mother. She kept repeating, "I'm sorry." The mother no longer had the lower half of her body.
Sorry. Sorry.
She could only crawl on the ground. David pulled the trigger and killed her. He dug a hole in the backyard to bury his parents' bodies. Although there weren't many supplies in the villa, fortunately, the well was not contaminated. At least it could solve the drinking water problem. However, his wife Mary was still unhappy. David asked his younger son Lucas to stay with his mother. He took his older son Josh to check the nearby warehouse. They might find something useful. Sure enough, there were radios, flashlights, and other items inside. Just then, Josh let out a frantic scream. It turned out the corpse of the warehouse manager was hanging in a corner of the room. David instructed his son to take the keychain from the body. Unexpectedly, the unfortunate boy pulled hard, and the body fell directly onto him. Afterwards, the 2 pushed a cart back to the yard. Mary led David to the basement. She found a machine inside, and didn't know if it was still functional. But David had been staring at the graffiti on the wall for a long time before he snapped back to reality. He checked the machine, and explained that the parts inside had been removed. Then he hurriedly left the basement. The graffiti on the wall seemed to evoke David had many unpleasant memories. In the evening, the family of 4 finally had a hearty meal. Mary couldn't help but ask what to do next. Food would eventually run out. Although there was water here, there was no electricity or signal. She believed they should, as the news suggested, avoid the city and continue heading north. Josh said Alice's family had moved to the mountains. David knew his son wanted to find his girlfriend, and he understood his wife didn't want to stay here, but he believed that, before figuring out the situation outside, it was best to stay here for now. Josh could only search for a signal everywhere. He hoped to contact his girlfriend, who was far away, but the next second, his phone died from lack of battery, and his hope was completely shattered. In the evening, David dreamed of things from his childhood. He suddenly woke up from the nightmare. He never expected that. The house he hated most as a child now made him feel safe.
Hindi yan sapat na rason para magstay tayo dito.
The 2 talked about a bunch of random things. We could only infer through snippets of conversation that something bad happened to David during his childhood in this house, and Mary might have had an affair. Josh might be someone else's child. In the end, the couple chose to hit the road again. Maybe if they followed this road north, they could reach the place where Alice and her family were temporarily staying. Along the way, Josh suddenly mentioned, "Uncle Diego also told us to head north." I overheard him talking to Mom. David felt very frustrated upon hearing this. Could this Diego be Mary's affair partner? Just as he was about to argue with his wife, a long line of abandoned cars suddenly appeared ahead. Further ahead, a fence blocked the road. The sun was about to set. David didn't want to take any risks. He prepared to turn back. Mary refused to go back to that house. She got out and pushed against the fence. She pushed several times, but couldn't move it. Mary could only pull out a knife and try to cut through the barbed wire. The 3 men in the car just watched. Soon, a zombie was awakened by the commotion. Unexpectedly, this soldier was quite dedicated. Even after turning into a zombie, he still remembered to check. David rushed out of the car and shot it, saving his wife. But Josh soon spotted a new zombie appearing. He honked the horn to alert his father. David quickly fired in response. However, the gunfire attracted more enemies. They frantically pounded on the car windows, surrounding the small van completely. Mary was afraid of hurting the children, and didn't want her husband to shoot carelessly. David had no choice but to shoot the zombie on the side, deliberately drawing them toward himself. Mary took the opportunity to save the children. David quickly ran out of bullets. He picked up the landmine from the body. He climbed onto the roof of the car. As quickly as possible, the zombies tried to pull him down. David shook off the enemies. Then he threw the grenade. The zombies were instantly blown to bits. The family of 4 miraculously survived. They had no choice but to return to the mansion again. 2 weeks passed. Only then did David dare to go back and start the van. However, after trying twice, it wouldn't start at all. He took useful parts back home. David walked into the basement with a can of gasoline. The painful memories of his childhood made him break out in a cold sweat. David suppressed his discomfort and went to repair the machine.
And God said, "Let there be light."
It turned out that the machine could generate electricity. Now they could even run the air conditioning and listen to music. Although it wasted gasoline, they still wanted to enjoy special days. Mary watched the 3 of them playing around, and a rare smile appeared on her face. David played the videotape from their wedding day. The main character of the story was himself, but their mindsets were vastly different. At least, David still wanted to save the marriage. The 2 children and Lucas could all see that their parents' relationship was improving. Feelings are truly a mysterious thing. When the world was falling apart, they strangely reconciled. This made Josh unable to avoid having fantasies. Maybe after his father's mood improved, he wouldn't take his frustrations out on him every day. Josh didn't know that his existence was proof of his mother's infidelity. David was working hard to repair this relationship. Mary was also rarely cooperative. Both of them had made mistakes in their marriage. Farm life was a second chance given by God. Neither wanted to waste it, but an unexpected event soon occurred. That day, David was about to go to the chicken coop to collect eggs. He saw a little black dog sneaking in. It barked incessantly. In a state of frenzy from hunger, David wanted to drive the dog away, but he was unexpectedly bitten by it. Mary's profession was a nurse. She knew this was not a trivial matter. It was best to find a hospital to get a rabies vaccine, but David suddenly slammed the table and said he was fine. Although he desperately suppressed his emotions, Mary saw the dent left by his watch on the table, knowing that David was on the edge of anger. At this moment, Josh suddenly found a signal. He caught a mention of a camp on the radio. He quickly called for his parents to come over, but the signal vanished in an instant. Moreover, David didn't want to leave at all, so he completely ignored Josh's words. Mary was still thinking about this matter. Until evening, she still wanted to go to the camp to regroup with the main group. Perhaps there was a rabies vaccine there. David refused without hesitation. Josh agreed with his mother's opinion, so he wanted to negotiate a bit. David retorted, "Have you forgotten about the situation on the bridge? If we encounter another crisis, are you confident you can kill like I do?" Josh didn't want to be looked down upon. He said, "I can do it." Unexpectedly, David pulled him into the field. Decades ago, this area was filled with rebel thieves. David's father, Abel, as a small landlord, was the most coveted target for these people. David learned to shoot on this land, so he insisted that Josh also learned to shoot here. If you can't even protect yourself, what right do you have to make demands? A series of gunshots attracted a large horde of zombies. They rushed over all at once. David quickly pulled his family into the villa. The front door couldn't possibly hold back so many zombies. They were about to flood in. Suddenly, a car drove up in front of the yard. The person inside honked the horn to lure the zombies away. It wasn't until the next morning that David dared to go outside. The chickens in the farmhouse had already been eaten by zombies. The one who drove to rescue them was David's own brother Diego. He had come this time to take David's family north to escape this hopeless farm. But David couldn't forgive his brother's betrayal. He drew his handgun and threatened Diego to stay away from his family. Diego tossed down a map. "If you change your mind, you can come find us anytime." After last night's lesson, David immediately reinforced the doors and windows with wooden planks. He turned the entire room into a prison. The couple's relationship plummeted once again. That day, Lucas took a fly swatter and chased a little bug into the basement. He saw a zombie standing outside the window. Mary hurried over when she heard her son's voice. Fortunately, the basement window was narrow, and the zombies outside couldn't squeeze in. Moreover, it looked very weak. It probably wouldn't last a few more days. Mary had a feeling that soon enough, they would be able to leave the farm. David happened to overhear this. He grabbed a weapon and chased after the zombie. He chopped off its head with a knife. Then he deliberately smeared blood on his clothes. David pretended to have just fought a desperate battle and told his wife that there were many zombies nearby. he barely managed to kill one. David's goal was to instill fear in his family, forcing them to stay on the farm. After his plan succeeded, David went to the bathroom to shower. Josh stumbled upon the map on him. In the evening, the boy couldn't help but ask him, "Where did that map come from?" Mary asked, "What map?" It turned out they didn't know that Diego had been there. That day, after David chased outside, he falsely claimed that the person who saved them had already left. At this point, David insisted he didn't have a map, and changed the subject to wanting another child. Mary was fed up with his unreasonable antics. She just wanted to escape this place quickly. The food supplies on the farm were running low. Most of the zombies outside were gradually deteriorating. She believed there was no need to waste time guarding the farm.
Rinig niyo ba to, boys? Iwan na tayo ng mama niyo.
Para maghanap ng pagka...
David had once feared this farm, afraid of his strong and brutal father. Yet at the same time, he admired that absolute power. So when David buried his father with his own hands and became the master of the farm, he unconsciously began to learn from his father, wanting to fully control and dominate his family, to become the man of the house. Like his father, David confronted his children, exposing the fact that Mary wanted to leave this home. Before the disaster erupted, Mary slammed the table to stop him. To prevent hurting the two children, David pulled out the map and immediately ignited it with a lighter. Mary hurried over to stop him, but the flames quickly consumed their hope. Soon after, David went to the sugarcane field to cut sugarcane. This was already one of their few food sources. Suddenly, a loud noise came from nearby. David quickly climbed up to observe. He discovered that, at the end of the sugarcane field, there was a plume of white smoke rising into the sky. In the evening, he hurried home in a rush. He used a large piece of wood to barricade the door. Mary asked him what happened. David only said, there were many zombies outside. They couldn't let them in. But in fact, over the past few weeks, except for the zombies by the basement window, no other dangers had approached. Josh couldn't help but mutter under his breath.
Ano sabi mo?
Sabi ko po bullshit.
Joshua, tumigil ka.
Hindi. Hayaan mo.
Josh bluntly stated, I think you just don't want us to go outside. You were locked in the basement by your parents before, so now you want to lock us up too. David exploded in anger.
Dito lang kayo sa loob! Dito lang kayo sa loob!
The man knocking at the door, Xiao Ku, claimed to be a soldier. He was thirsty and tired, so he came to ask for some water. David was reluctant to trust strangers, so he threatened him to leave. He said, if you don't leave, I'll shoot. Josh secretly opened the door. The soldier named Xiao Ku tumbled into the house. He explained that he hadn't been bitten, but had scratches and wounds from scrapes. Xiao Ku was from a nearby Delta camp, the very place Josh had heard about on the radio. The camp was only half a day's drive from here. In the morning, their unit went to the city to look for supplies. On the way back, they encountered a horde of zombies. Xiao Ku's teammates had all been killed. David immediately said, I told you it wasn't safe out there. It's not safe outside at all. Xiao Ku didn't pick up on the tension. He retorted, from here to the camp, there were hardly any zombies left. As long as they didn't go to the city, it would be fine. Xiao Ku had nearly died on the road. Fortunately, a man saved him, and told Xiao Ku to seek help at this estate. Needless to say, that man was definitely Diego. However, when Xiao Ku escaped, Diego had already been surrounded by zombies. By now, he was probably dead. In the end, David agreed to shelter Xiao Ku, but he would have to be locked in the basement for one night, to ensure he wasn't infected with the virus. In the dead of night, Josh quietly woke his mother. He said he was planning to go find Uncle Diego. In fact, Josh had long suspected he wasn't David's son. Unloved children are always sensitive. He found it hard to ignore the disgust in David's eyes. Even so, Josh still saw him as a father figure, but during this time, it had all become too unhealthy. Josh wanted to take the risk, to seek help from Diego, and hoped that his mother would go with him, but Mary couldn't leave her younger son behind. He could only pray to the gods to protect her brave elder son. The next day, David woke up again from a nightmare. He saw Xiao Ku eating in the dining room, but there was no sign of Josh at the table. He noticed the unspeakable expression on Mary's face. He instantly realized that Josh had run away from home. David walked to the door and saw the padlock had been removed. His eyes were filled with malice. David picked up a hammer. He walked to the living room and smashed Xiao Ku's head. He questioned Mary, asking if she was also going to leave. The woman could only desperately shield the child behind her. In the next moment, she was also knocked unconscious by the hammer. When Mary woke from her stupor, she realized she was lying in the basement. Lucas was huddled in a corner, hugging his knees. Mary banged on the door for help, but David ignored her cries. He simply sat next to Shauka's corpse, eating his meal. Suddenly, barking sounded from outside. It was the little black dog from before. The basement door was opened by someone. David walked in wearing military attire and saluted. He took out a plate of meat, which was probably the meat of the little black dog. He wanted to call Lucas over to eat, but Mary stopped her hungry son. She asked, "Where did this meat come from?" David lied that he had hunted some wild game. As he spoke, he stuffed a large piece of meat into his mouth. He kept tempting the hungry Lucas, but the little boy shrank back, frightened, into his mother's arms. David smashed the entire plate on the floor. He said, "When I was your age, if I didn't finish everything on my plate, I would get beaten by my dad. Now that you have food, do you dare not to eat?" Mary approached the carving knife. While David was distracted, he suddenly turned around. She quickly stepped on the knife with her foot. Then she pretended to be submissive, saying that she wouldn't leave. But in the next second, David pushed Mary aside and picked up the knife beneath her feet. David locked the basement door again. Mary searched for an exit all around. She found a stick and desperately tried to pry the wooden planks apart, but she missed a step and fell to the ground. Mary looked at the sunlight streaming in and slowly lost consciousness. In the evening, Lucas woke his mother up, asking if Daddy was going to kill them. Maybe we can learn from the story of the boy who cried wolf. Soon, a piercing scream from Lucas echoed in the basement. David instantly grabbed his handgun and rushed to save his son.
For what?
Mary grabbed the keys and fled with her son. David hurriedly drew his gun and fired, but he was too late and found himself locked in the basement. David aimed to shoot the lock off the door. His anger burned to a boiling point, but in the next moment, profanity caught in his throat. In a daze, David saw the figure of his father. The familiar confined space made his legs weak. David transformed back into that little boy from years ago. He could do nothing but cry out in helplessness. Mary quickly gathered their belongings. She grabbed the cleaver from the table and opened the sealed door. As soon as they stepped out of the villa, they saw a zombie. Mary looked closely and realized it was Diego. Mary pulled her son and ran away, but there was no time to secure the door. She struggled to take her son upstairs. Diego grabbed her ankle and pulled her back down. She kicked Diego with all her strength. She scrambled to the upstairs. She grabbed a backpack to block the zombie trying to bite her. Lucas saw his mother in danger. He swung the flashlight at the zombie. This immediately attracted the zombie's attention. Lucas was about to be bitten. Mary quickly threw the backpack. The zombie became furious. It grabbed a chair and slammed it towards Mary. David, in a state of mental collapse, heard his wife's scream. In an instant, he regained some of his sanity. He desperately crashed through the wooden basement door. He dashed forward like lightning, knocking the zombie down until he smashed its head into a pulp. David still thought it was Mary, who had deliberately let Diego in. He raised the gun but, ready to kill this woman. Fortunately, Lucas stepped in just in time to stop him, but unfortunately, the boy had already been bitten by a zombie. There was no time to waste. They had to amputate immediately to prevent the toxin from spreading. At this critical moment, David hesitated. He couldn't bring himself to chop off his son's arm. Fortunately, Mary was very brave. She quickly disinfected the cleaver. She stuffed a towel into Lucas's mouth to prevent him from biting his tongue. In the next second, Mary raised the cleaver and came down with it. The blade was too dull. She couldn't cut through in one stroke. She had no choice but to grit her teeth and chop down repeatedly. The screams and the sound of bones cracking were like a saw, grinding back and forth in their hearts. Mary struggled to bandage her son's wound. She ordered David to quickly find a vehicle. They had to get their son to a doctor as soon as possible. Lucas's weak groans brought David back to his senses. He rushed out to find a car. He ran to the bridge. David was panting and didn't even have the strength to open the car door. Unexpectedly, Josh suddenly stood in front of him, holding a gun. The boy, on the run, was extremely tense. Seeing David covered in blood and mumbling, he was so frightened that he pulled the trigger. David collapsed to the ground after being shot. Josh snapped back to reality and rushed over to apologize. This time, in his father's eyes, there was finally no longer that chilling disgust. David, relieved, called out "son," and then lost his breath forever. Life often finds reconciliation in its regrets. Josh repaired the car and started it up. He hurried back to the farm to find his mother and brother. The headlight soon illuminated Mary's eyes. She saw a glimmer of hope for life. The film ends here. It's yet another tale of a dragon-slaying youth, becoming a dragon himself. Compared to a pure zombie disaster film, it feels more like an art film. At its core, it explores family relationships. It is a concentrated reflection of patriarchal systems in a unique space. The progression of the plot, rather than external horror, relies more on the internal conflicts to drive it forward. David hated his father so much, yet he gradually became just like him. The influence of the original family is indeed not easily erased. Overall, the flaws do not overshadow the merits. Although the zombies are merely a catalyst, the escape scenes are quite well executed. The scene where the mother amputates her son's arm is also very intense. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe.